All right. I just wanted to thank everyone for being here. This is a Major League Mindset panel presented by Chevron. And thanks so much to Chevron for presenting this. And thank you to you all for tuning in. This is a really special one for me. Not only do we have a fantastic group of panelists, some women from the A's front office, but also, I played Oakland Girls Softball League, and I really, really love speaking to the girls and women who play youth baseball and softball in the East Bay, and such as yourself. So thank you so much for tuning in. Without further ado, I want to have everyone introduce themselves. Let's start with Catherine Aker.
Hi, I'm Catherine Aker. I'm the Vice President of Marketing and Communications, and I'm so happy to be here.
Colette, why don't you go next?
Hi, I'm Colette Lucas Conwell. I'm Senior Coordinator of Operations in the Office of the President. Happy to be here.
Hemi.
Hi, I'm Hemi So, and I'm Associate General Counsel here at the A's.
All right, and Whitney.
Hi there, I'm Whitney Campbell, and I'm the Manager of Community Engagement.
And my name is Amelia Schimmel. I am the public address announcer for the A's, which means I do kind of the announcements in stadium, the now batting and the things that you hear while you're in the stadium. So I do a lot of talking. I'll try not to do too much today. I want to hear from our great panelists. So first of all, you've heard the names and titles, but what kind of work do you do on a daily basis? Let's start with Catherine.
Yeah, so in my role, I oversee our marketing team. And that includes traditional marketing and advertising, that's game operations, where Amelia is in that group, as well as our broadcasting team in marketing. And then I also oversee our communications. So that's everything, all the baseball communications, which I'm sure we'll talk a little bit more about, as well as the traditional type of PR and publicity. And I also oversee our community team that Whitney's a part of as well, and our community fund.
Whitney, how about you next?
Yes, so I oversee two of our three main pillars for community. I oversee education, which consists of our literacy program and our scholarship programs, and then also our civic service pillar, which is more volunteerism and then giving back to the community.
Colette.
So most of my role is around helping out with the new ballpark efforts. So that's anything from helping Catherine with some of the communications and researching some talking points, to working with the city, the county, all the different stakeholders on, anything from community benefits agreement to just public meetings in general. So just supporting our new ballpark efforts.
Hemi, how about you?
I am a lawyer on our legal team, and our team supports all aspects of the business, from baseball operations to marketing, to stadium operations, anywhere that needs legal support through contracts, general legal advice, and sometimes just some legal/business advice to make sure we are in compliance with rules and regulations.
So thank you. So not all of us have been in sports our entire careers. Some of us kind of landed in it. Some of us thought, since we were born, that's what we wanted to do. So I want to hear a little bit about each person's story. Catherine, why don't we start with you? Did you want to pursue a career in sports? Did it just kind of happen for you? And what inspired you to get here?
Yes, I declared in my 8th grade math class that I was going to be on Sports Center one day. So I said at 13 years old, I was going to be a sportscaster, and it was a long time ago. So the boys laughed at me and said I couldn't do it because I was a girl. And so I knew from a very early age that I wanted to work in sports. Obviously, the actual job has changed slightly over the years, but everything I did after that to the point of when I got my first job after I graduated from college was really to get to this goal. And I'm sure we're going to talk a little bit more about things you can do in high school, because I did a lot of stuff in high school to prepare me to get to a great job in college and then after. But I was pretty much focused from a very early age.
Whitney, how do you?
Yeah, kind of like you, Catherine. I had this inherent competitiveness all my life. I remember playing Foursquare in my driveway in 5th grade, and with all the boys, I broke my thumb trying to compete with everybody. So I've always just loved sports. I think it's defined me in so many ways. And for me, I was a college athlete, played basketball. for 2 years. And when I graduated, I knew I wanted to work in sports in some capacity. So for me, I kind of took the approach of an actual baseball player. I worked in minor leagues for 10 years. I went from rookie league to single A to triple A, and then to the A's in 2019. So I think I can really resonate with all the baseball players climbing the ladders.
Colette, how about you?
So I wasn't really sure I wanted to get into the sports industry until I tried something else out. So like a lot of people here and in the front office in general, was and am still an athlete in rowing and always loved everything related to the sports world. And when I graduated from college, weirdly enough, was trying to make a decision between going into the finance world because I had an econ degree or going into the sports world, and was in the finance industry for about 7 months and decided that I absolutely hated it. And it was just not my vibe at all. And so when I moved out to the West Coast, I was looking around at different jobs. I ended up meeting the president of the A's, Dave Cavill, and had a discussion with him, and had met different people in the sports world, and just loved the energy, the stories that come out of sports, and just generally loved everything about the sports industry. And so decided right then and there that that was where I wanted to go, and started out as an executive administrator. I'm now senior coordinator of operations, and just, starting out in my career in the sports world, but loving it so far.
Hemi.
Well, unlike many of us on this call, I am neither an athlete nor did I start out thinking I would work in the sports industry. I actually followed a fairly conventional path for lawyers. I started working at a law firm shortly after law school. I also worked for a judge. And then for many years, I actually worked in the tech industry. And while working in tech, I started going deeper and deeper into working on very sort of theoretical and abstract products. And that sort of made my practice more and more specialized and also less tangible. And after doing that for a few years, I realized I wanted to do something that had more of an impact on people, where like the thing that I was delivering really could be seen or felt or touched by people. I also wanted to find something where I could learn a lot more, learn more different areas of law, learn something new. And obviously I hadn't been working in sports. And so this opportunity arose at the A's, and it met a lot of those criteria, just a broad base of work, and really doing something that brings joy to a lot of people. And so that's how I got into sports.
Cool. So, Colette casually mentioned that she does rowing, but what she glossed over, and I'll call her out a little bit, and forgive me if I'm not, saying this correctly, but are you the sole woman on an all-male rowing team? And if so, can you tell us a little bit about that? And that'll kind of lead into talking a little bit about being in this male-dominated industry that we're in. So Colette, let's start with you on that one.
So that actually the big reason of why I came out to the West Coast was to join the U.S. rowing men's team with the hope of going to the Olympics. So I'd always been on women's teams. I was an NCAA athlete on the Virginia women's rowing team. And in 2017, like right when I graduated from college, is when the International Olympic Committee decided that women's coxswains could be on men's teams, men's coxswains could be on women's teams, which had never been done at the international level. And, for people who don't know rowing, as a coxswain, you just steer the boat, give commands, you're kind of the leader or the coach in the boat during a race. So there's no physical aspects to it. So there's no reason why women couldn't be in men's boats.
But you're commanding authority, right? You're commanding the authority, like they are listening to you and they're taking your lead.
Yeah. So you definitely you're in a leadership position, and you're the one who's calling the shots, when you're making moves, where you are in the race, everything. You're the coach in the boat. And so when I came out here, I was the first woman, and I'm still the only woman on the team, always surrounded by guys all the time. And it's interesting because in my department at the A's, although it's very small, I'm one of, a few women. And so some of the skills that I learned being in practice with only guys, I transfer over to my workplace and back to. So definitely there were some intimidating aspects of that we can all go into, and that I'm sure we can all relate to, but there was definitely an aspect of like, don't feel like I belong here. I have to like overcompensate to really prove myself. And some of those things I also saw in baseball, which is obviously very male dominated. But it's just kind of, trusting your gut and, relying on other women and talking with them too, to learn about how do you deal with those circumstances, but definitely translates over from boat to office.
Yeah. I mean, she's a really incredible athlete and leader, obviously, on that boat. So I'm very, very impressed by her all the time. And Catherine, you mentioned that when you were in 8th grade, I believe, people were saying like, why do you want to go into sports? Were you receiving that kind of feedback throughout your career? Or is there somebody who said, no, you can do this. Don't listen to those people that say you shouldn't?
Yeah, I mean, I can't remember any adult telling me that I couldn't do it. It was more of just the boys that were also 13 years old that just laughed at me. So I felt very supported by a number of my teachers in high school. And I was really upfront. I would tell anyone that would listen to me that I wanted to work in sports. And I think for me, it opened the doors because people were like, oh, well, I know someone you could talk to at this place, or if we don't have a broadcast journalism program here at this high school, but you should think about doing public speaking and getting into the drama class or the journalism class. So I felt that the more people I told, it allowed me to make sure that there were people that were trying to make it work for me. And I don't want anyone should be afraid of talking about your goals and what you want to achieve in your career, because people do want to help and people want to support you. And I think you have to be your own advocate and you have to fight for what you want and not be afraid of going out there. And for me, I felt very supported throughout my childhood to get to where I am now. When I joined professional sports as a 22-year-old at the Arizona Diamondbacks, like things change, right? All of a sudden you're in a professional setting and you don't have that just support system of coaches and teachers always around you. But I do think that I had an incredible foundation from sports and from the extracurricular activities I did, that I felt confident enough that I deserved to have the job and deserve to have a seat at the table. And I was still telling people what I wanted to do. When I got in an elevator with the owner at one point, and he asked me what I did and what I wanted to do in 5-10 years, I knew what I was going to say to him. And I was never afraid to tell people. And I remember at one point, there was one of my bosses that kind of laughed at me because I felt so grateful to have the job I had. And he, looked at me, I think, so naive and young, but I didn't let it deter me, because I just have always had a singular focus. And I think it's a great skill I learned through sports. I played basketball growing up, and being a part of that team atmosphere and making sure that you get back out on the court. I know I didn't play baseball and softball, but you get back out on the field after, things don't always go the way you want. And so to me, the life skills I learned through sports, I think, have really tremendously helped me in my career.
Whitney, how about you? I mean, minor league baseball, major league baseball, all of that has to be a little bit different. And I'm sure that it's generally male dominated throughout. Obviously things are improving. We're getting a lot more girls and women in these industries, but what was your experience like kind of rising in the ranks through baseball?
Yeah, I remember one distinct moment in college, specifically one of my business professors, he worked for the Minnesota Vikings back in the day. And when I told him what I wanted to do with my life, he's like, it's a hard path. It's really hard to break into sports. It's a cutthroat industry. Like, good luck. So that alone was a lot of my inspiration. I'm like, I'm going to work in sports and I'm going to prove him wrong. So that was kind of like the early part of my career out of college. And, minor leagues, it is tough. I remember being in a marketing meeting and being the only female, and honestly feeling like I was representing so many of the other females in our company, and it's a lot of weight on your shoulders. But I think using each other as a resource and really just Catherine talked about teamwork, just like relying on them, instilling confidence in one another, and just rooting each other on, I think has really helped me get to where I am in my career now.
Now, Hemi, I know you haven't been in sports your entire career, but when you're a lawyer, it's a very similar industry in terms of it's cutthroat, it's competitive. The people that are there are really good at speaking and arguing their point. It's chaotic at times. So have you experienced kind of that same, needing to prove yourself that the other women on the panel have mentioned?
Yeah, definitely. I think sadly, I think sometimes it's hard to escape, regardless of industry. The legal industry is, I think in pure numbers, it's pretty equal in terms of women and men, but the higher up you go, you start seeing fewer women and a lot more men. And definitely tech is still male dominated, although you're starting to see more women enter technology across departments and specialties. And I think it is hard. You have to prove yourself, not only as whatever you are, like I had to prove myself as a lawyer that I had the skills to do good work, be effective, but also you're working against certain biases that are just sort of perpetuated in different ways, sometimes just societally, sometimes inadvertently at the organization, sometimes very explicitly, which is very challenging to deal with. And like the other women on this panel, I think a lot of times you really have to rely on your allies to kind of help move forward. It's really hard to do it on your own. I think it's noble to try, but it's very, very hard. And there are so many people who are willing to help you. And it doesn't just have to be women, it can be men or women. But finding those people, I think, is pretty key because they can provide opportunities for you. They can also provide advice, guidance, and sometimes just a sounding board. Maybe you have a crazy idea about something or other, and they're ready to listen to you. So.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of overlap here, I think, in all of our roles, and in mine particularly, I won't disclose too much, but getting that support from the late Dick Callahan, the previous PA announcer. There were only 2 PA announcers before me, and they were both men. And so people were used to hearing a man's voice. Getting the support from him, having him say, you can do this, having that male support was really important. I want to kind of just open this up to anybody who wants to answer it here. Do you find that sometimes, you have a lot of support from women because they understand what you're going through, but is there one man that, or several that have said, listen, you can do this, and that helped you even more?
I mean, yeah, I'll jump in. I mean, I think, again, like small department, so there's only so many people in it, but we all work so closely together and like frequently. I mean, I would say, like Curtis and Taj have both been guys in my department who, when I've wanted to ask for a promotion or things like that, I would talk to them and say, like, along with some of the women here, would also ask them like, hey, would you be able to vouch for me in terms of like how hard I've worked and like all of that? And they would be there and be like, yes, absolutely. Like, I've seen how much time you've put in, like, I'll be there right with you. And Taj has also been someone who, he's our VP of Government Affairs, very creative person, good sounding board sometimes to talk through ideas, and always has been like super supportive. So there's definitely male allies in the department. And also just like talking to others. Like I remember I would talk to like Wade and like other people in the organization as well, just casually, but they would always be there to say like, hey, I've noticed you worked really hard, and they would just be really supportive as well. So it's not just women, I think like men too. And a lot of them, I think, are willing and able to help, and they really want to, in terms of just like vouching for you, talking through stuff. It's worth giving them a shot to talk to them.
Yeah. Anyone else want to weigh in there?
I mean, I think because there's so few women, particularly in sports, that you have to rely on your male colleagues and the men that you're working with on a daily basis, because to get work done and to continue to advance in your career, you need people that are going to support you and believe in you. And so those relationships are just as important as women, whether the women are your mentors or they're people that are supporting your careers. And so you have to learn how to build those relationships, and those relationships do look differently than women, and they continue to change as you move up in your career. And I find that there were times where there were men who were great allies, and then when I became their equal, things dramatically changed. And so you have to continue to work on relationships and work on yourself, and it's constantly evolving and changing, no matter where you are in your career. But I think it's critically important to find people that you can rely on, that you can go to when you need support or help, both professionally or personally, some of the things that Colette talked about throughout your career, and understanding that building those relationships, even continuing the relationships after you leave. And so when you're young and starting out, using, whether it's a coach that you've had in high school or college, or a teacher or an advisor, keeping those relationships particularly early on. When I first started at the Diamondbacks, I would call my boss at the University of Arizona, where I was in their sports department as an undergrad, all of the time, because he was the trusting relationship I had, and I hadn't built those relationships yet at the D-backs. And so I would call him and say, hey, how do I handle this? Or, what can I do? And so continuing those relationships on, just because you've left, if you have someone that you can trust and rely on that's going to be in your corner, continuing to kind of foster those relationships are also important.
Something I thought was so cool, we actually recently saw on YouTube an all women's broadcast, and the play-by-play and the sideline reporters and the announcer, all women. And it was the first time that had ever happened. And something that stood out to me was there was a player on the Orioles when he was mic'd up saying how cool it was and how there should be more of this and how smart those women were. And that really stood out to me as, he's an ally. We need more people like that to understand why it's important to get women into these roles. And you have allies all the way around, but you got to rely on those people, whether they're family or friends or strangers. So let's move on from the obstacles. We talked a little bit about that. Let's talk about the fun, because there's a really big payoff to working in this industry. Yes, you do work a lot of nights and weekends and holidays, but it's a unique job, and you get to root for your team. You get to root for the company that you work for, right? So let's start with you, Whitney. What's that like working in sports? What's the fun like? What's the unique part of it?
Yeah, so I would say first and foremost, with our jobs, a lot of our days are different. It's not this mundane job, 9 to 5, you go to work, sit at a desk, and that's it. Our days are so different, wildly different. Some things are happening simultaneously. You're juggling different tasks. You're, creating a checklist just for the day to make sure you get through your priorities. For me in community engagement, our work, we're not the most revenue generating department by any means, but, our work is really measured by impact. The work that we're doing in East Oakland and West Oakland and the East Bay, our work is just very worthwhile. And so for me, meeting different people and building relationships, networking, that's what's great about community engagement.
Hemi, let's go to you next.
To reiterate something I said before, I think for me, one of the great parts is actually seeing my work come to life. Everything from, there's a fireworks show and I did the agreement. So I helped make it happen. Just kind of seeing things happen is great. And I will also echo something that Whitney was talking about, every day is different, truly. One day I'll be grinding on a big agreement for a technology provider to help us with mobile ordering at the Coliseum. And then, 2 hours later, I get an email where I have a question about, an employment issue and how to get through that. And then maybe 20 minutes later, I'll see another message, and it's about, a privacy compliance request that we got from someone. So I think that makes it really exciting. I'm the type of person who likes to learn all the time. And I think working in sports, particularly at a club where it's also a business, it's not just playing a game. There are just so many different aspects that we get to support and see and learn more about. And to do my job, I not only have to know the law, but actually how we do things, because I have to merge the two to make sure they're aligned. So it's super interesting just to see how do we coordinate stuff so people have good experiences when they go to a ball game? How do we, put together these campaigns at the community level so that our community feels the positive impact that our club brings? All of that stuff is just, it keeps things very exciting, and that's fun.
Colette, how about you? What are the fun parts of your job?
Any day spent with Dave Cabell is a fun day. No. I will say at the beginning, Curtis and I would switch off who would walk around with Dave at ball games. And it was just like such a whirlwind of like, you go down to the field and you go say hi to this person, you go there. And it was just like so intense. Like I felt like all my senses were activated of like, okay, just gotta get a grasp on things. So that's always a lot of fun, is like getting to walk around a game with Dave and just like meeting a bunch of people, but also just more so on the new ballpark side of things. I think something that Whitney talked about, similar with our project, is just getting to meet so many different kinds of people from all aspects and like all different kinds of groups, from like Congresswoman Barbara Lee to, you know, I remember one time we met Eric Swalwell and we did like a tour with him down to the field, to like very influential grassroots groups in the community and like working all together on a shared vision. I think that is so cool. And it's amazing to be able to get to talk to people from all walks of life and work together on different projects. So I love that part of the job, and just meeting new people and working together on this project.
Yeah, and for those of you who don't know, Dave Cavil is our team president. He is energetic and he's connected, and you might find him texting with Tom Hanks about a baseball game. And Colette is very much a part of that circle. And I'm sure it's just one of the most unique jobs there is in sports. Catherine, why don't you go next?
Yeah, I mean, our job is to entertain the community every night. Like, how can you not love that? If you're particularly, love sports, to be able to work behind the scenes. And Hemi's right, it is a job. And I think there are times where you can feel like a fan, and there's times where you're putting on, your work hat and really focus on work. But our job is to come put on a product every single night. We're behind the scenes. Obviously, we're not on the field, but our job is to support the players on the field and really create a memorable experience, whether it's the first time they've come or whether they come every single night. It's a unique experience. And I just feel like it's such a privilege that this is what we get to do. And people spend their time experiencing what we create, whether it's the fireworks show, whether it's, the big heads, running on the field, and just everything, I think. And then the community work is so important. Like, being able to do a panel like this with, future leaders and women that are going to change the world is such an incredible, exciting thing, and such a gift that our organization has, as well as a responsibility in the community work and seeing the impact that we make in the community, whether it's providing support to youth baseball and softball teams or nonprofits in Oakland that need it. I just think it's an incredible way to get to work. And if it feels like work, I know that's such a cliche. They say if it feels like work, then you're in the wrong profession. But you get to come to a ballpark every single day. And so yes, some days are hard and challenging and stressful, but overall, it's just an incredible kind of profession. And I feel really grateful that I've been able to do it for 20 years.
Yeah, I mean, a couple of you mentioned fireworks shows. I remember the first time seeing a fireworks show that I helped to create, and watching people enjoy that. Not just me enjoying it as a fan and as an employee, but watching people enjoy it was just the coolest thing in the world. And you get the sense of gratitude, And I will say too, that some people have come up to me throughout my career and said, I don't know what I want to do, but like, what can you tell me about this industry? It seems to be a lot of fun. You get to, I love sports. The people that are asking me, they love sports. They want to work in sports, but they're wondering if kind of loving sports and working in sports go hand in hand. And I found that they do a lot. And, there's a business side, obviously, to everything, but getting to actually experience the success of the team and sharing the success of the team. And like we said, watching fireworks. If somebody came up to you, we'll start with you, Whitney. If somebody came up to you, one of the girls that's watching today, and said, what advice would you give me? I'm thinking about going into this industry. What advice can you give that person that's asking you about going into sports?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I know we've all been through it on this panel. For me, I would say you don't always have to have that next big step. Your dream job doesn't have to be your first job out of college. It doesn't have to be your first job in general. You can take the small steps to get to your big dream job, whatever that may be. I know for me, I got into a path on minor league baseball. I started in merchandise, which is so crazy to think about, 10 years later. Like, what was I doing in merchandise? Organizing hats, selling hats. And interesting fact, the first team I worked for, the hat, it would glow in the dark because we were the Casper Ghosts. So we had people from all over the country and just trying to get these hats. And I remember being, 21 out of college, like what the heck? But that was my first job ever. And now I go forward to looking, working in community. So I think my biggest piece of advice was, get your foot in the door and then grow from there. You don't have to have your big dream job. You don't have to stay in this job permanently forever. I mean, I once read in a book too that, our jobs now it's like a jungle gym. They used to say, career ladder. You start at the bottom and climb to the top. Now it's a jungle gym. So take risks, make your own opportunities, and the future is yours.
Hemi, I always tell college students that I speak to that they don't necessarily need to know what they want to do in high school or college unless they're doing pre-law or pre-med. So it's something you decide early on, a little bit early. There's a lot of schooling involved. Is that something where you just decided I'm going into law? And then, what's it like then figuring out that once you decide on that career path that you can branch into sports or, entertainment or anything else that law encompasses?
Well, for me, I went to law school straight after college. So I knew early on that was something I wanted to pursue. But I will say I have a friend from college who is in her third year of law school. So she is a little bit older than me. So she's in her late 40s and she is finishing law school now. So, particularly with law, I think you can go anytime. There's always a need, and there's always laws. So there's lots to learn. I would say, law is one of those areas where you develop a lot of skills. Obviously, they're around analyzing legal issues and problem solving in a particular way. And they're really useful in all sorts of areas. And I think a lot of skills are actually like that. I think there are a lot of marketing skills that you can use in retail, you can use in sports, you could use in television, whatever. And I think those foundations are really great to have. And going into sports for me was, like I said, I wasn't an athlete, but I was definitely a fan. And so it was really nice to be invested in what I was working on, where, yeah, you're right. Like you're rooting for your team to win and you're rooting for your organization to succeed. And you kind of see everyone around you also doing that. And sometimes you don't have that. Like I worked at one company where I was in charge of the legal issues around notifications on your phone, which I don't think most people like notifications on their phone, but it's hard to be, super invested on like a red dot that shows up on an app on your phone versus a baseball game, making it to the postseason, amazing giveaways that people are like, that's sick, where'd you get that? Which by the way, just happened to me recently with an A's shirt that I was wearing. But back to your original question, I mean, I think whether you go into sports immediately, like right out, from college straight in or after law school, whatever, I think there are a lot of foundational skills that you can learn along the way, and they will be ever so useful in sports. People skills, taking pride in your work and having certain standards that you set for yourself. Mentorship to other people. Once you've kind of learned the ropes, being able to train other people, or when you're, more seasoned, being able to provide mentorship to people just coming into the industry. So, yeah.
Colette, how about you?
I think one of the biggest things I would say, and this is something I did early on, is to not just get pigeonholed into like, I have to work for a team and that's the only aspect of the sports industry. There's so much more around it. There's products, like you could go into like sports tech, you could go into representing athletes. Obviously there's like content. There's just, the sports industry is so much bigger than just working in a front office. And so obviously, front offices are very small. There's only so many roles that pop up. It's all about timing really. And so, if you don't get that, like when you said, like, you're not going to get that dream job most of the time. You're not going to get that dream job right out of college, but there's so much out there that is still like very much involved in the sports industry. And so to really kind of broaden your search and also talk to people in those industries to see if that's a good fit. Like if you really want to work on a product, or if you want to work more in like an ESPN or like a DraftKings, even, like there's so many different companies that work in sports and they're just as fun. So it's worth just kind of doing that research to look at different companies, groups, etc. That would be my biggest tip.
Catherine, any advice from you?
Yeah, I think Whitney said it. You don't have to know what you want to do early on. So don't worry about that if you're 12 or 17 and you haven't figured it out. It's going to be okay. Lots of people don't, even after they graduate, still don't know. So I think knowing that it's, you may want to work in sports, but you don't know what that is. And so when you're in school, leaning on your coaches and your advisors and your teachers and asking questions, when you're in high school, asking questions. And I think the big thing is to get ready for college or a job. It's skills that you're learning right now. So writing is really important. It's not just, even if my world is communication, so it's writing a lot, but even just having to write an email from a professional standpoint to someone. So it's taking your English classes really seriously is important. Math is critically important as well. So, I think the skills you're learning in middle school and high school also set you up for your career. And I know right now when you may not think that's the case, but it's important. And I think those basic things will make you successful. I think thinking about public speaking, whatever that means, because even if it's not to a crowd of 1,000 people, even a situation like this, when you're on Zoom calls, or I know you guys probably had Zoom calls a lot last year, or standing in a meeting when there's 10 people, it's being able to speak in a coherent and confident way. And I think particularly for women, that's more important. We have to think about how we show up at work every single day. And so those types of things that you can learn now when you're young, and I think are great. I did a lot of what I call internships and work programs starting at 16. I called the radio station and said, can I come and just learn? And they said, I can't pay you. And I said, I'll just come. And it was actually the sports affiliate for the Oakland A's. And I would come every Saturday and I would just watch how they ran the switchboards and just learn and soaked it up. And then I, did television internships and I worked at the paper. I just wanted to really learn as much as I possibly could. And I think that's what Hemi is like. We're always learning, even in all of us in our career now, we are still learning and growing and trying things. And I think, so don't be afraid to try. Don't be afraid to think outside the box. And I think ultimately it's true. What you're learning on the field in softball right now will translate into work. And those life skills you're learning, teamwork, how to communicate, how to make compromises, how to push yourself beyond the limit. All of that stuff will make you successful, particularly in all industries, but in sports, those are really important skills, because hopefully by the time you guys are all there, it'll be equal 50-50 balance of women and men. And so it'll look really differently, but right now there's not as many women. And so, really thinking about what you're learning in sports will translate into your career.
Yeah, that actually led right into my last question. I know we only have a few minutes here, so just quickly wanted to mention that, growing up playing softball in college, I felt like I learned so much just about leadership, about how to interact with your teammates, how to disagree with people, how to speak up. And like you said, Catherine, having those people skills, having, the ability to socialize, the ability to give your opinion is really important. But some people are afraid of public speaking. I personally was. Now I do it for a living. All I do is talk on a microphone for a living. So to come that far,
I can't believe that you were ever afraid of public speaking.
Oh God, yeah. Now I can't stop talking.
To be a certain way at 16 doesn't mean you'll be that way. I'm not going to say your age, but that's a good show that whoever you are now as a teenager doesn't necessarily mean that's how you'll translate later.
Yeah, let's just say it's been a couple of decades, but I think, I can remember in high school being terrified of giving presentations in front of just 10 people. And now I have to think about talking in front of 15, 30,000 people. And it still gives me a little bit of anxiety. And I think that that's okay. And I think the point here is that you don't have to be who you're going to be 20 years from now, working towards that is exactly what you guys that are watching are doing. It's playing organized sports. It's learning how to be a good teammate. It's being competitive, but not, overly competitive. It's understanding all of that balance and all the work that you're doing in school. So I wanted to give each panelist just an opportunity, like a final 30 seconds to say, hey, perhaps, Whitney, coming through the minor leagues and Catherine as well, playing basketball growing up, anything that was extracurricular that perhaps led you to this point that wasn't just something that you learned in a book. If you wanted to weigh in on that, and Whitney, we'll start with you.
So I think this has been a general theme for this whole panel. I think the ability to learn is one of the best qualities for a leader. And I truly believe that, in every aspect, we're all learning every day. Stuff that I never thought I would learn 10 years ago, I'm still like working on now. So I think having the adaptability and the ability to learn has been great for my career and in sports as well. You're learning plays, you're learning to play with other people and team rapport and all of that stuff. So I would say, leadership, ability to learn is one of the best things. I would also say, success is different to so many people. So as you start your career path and your schooling, like what does success mean to you? And, define that and then go from there and create your opportunities.
Exactly. And success can be just a small victory, right? It can be like today, I spoke to 10 people and that was more than I had ever spoken to. And then 20 and then 30 and then who knows. Hemi, what about you?
I think one of the things that I think is really valuable is really learning about yourself and what you like to do and what your strengths are. I used to work at a company where they really believe in maximizing your strengths. I know there's sort of the conventional adage that you should work on your weaknesses and, really concentrate on that. And in this instance, it was really like, of course there are some weaknesses you want to improve on, but really like dig into your strengths. And I really like that approach. And a lot of times you don't know what your strengths are until you try a bunch of stuff out, right? And when you're in middle school and high school, you have so many things you can try out. You don't have to do it forever. Just try it out. And it might turn out you thought you were afraid of public speaking, but you love it. You thought you might not be good at math, but it turns out if you do math a certain way for a certain purpose, you are excellent at it, like whatever it is. And then I think it's great to just run with it. There are so many jobs out there in sports where you can maximize on those skills. Whether it's interacting with people, like maybe you're super great at like talking to people and convincing them of things. So you could be a lawyer, you could be a sales rep, you could be a broadcaster, whatever. I think sometimes, especially when we're young, people are just like, you have to do it this way. This is the way you do it. And this is how it should go. And I think sometimes, there's some merit to some of what is said, but you also have to think about like what you love, what you're good at, what makes you tick, and combine that with like advice that people give about, oh, you're really into that, try this, because this is a really great thing. And so I think the openness to that and really just loving yourself and what you bring to the table and moving that forward, I think will just open up a lot of doors and bring a lot of satisfaction to your career.
Yeah, I mean, it's so true that being yourself and true to yourself is the right way to do it. And you're the only person who has your own journey and path. And so there's no reason that somebody should tell you what your path is, because you're the only one who really knows what it is. Colette, you've had a lot of success on the local and world stage. Tell us a little bit about just the motivation and, really like anything that you can give that might have been advice that helped you.
I mean, I think one of the biggest things that I've learned from rowing, but that I've applied to everyday life, is like, how do you face adversity, and, how do you pull yourself together when you don't win, or, you don't make a team. Like, for example, this is fresh for me. I did not make the Tokyo 2020 team. That was always a really big dream of mine. But I was able to kind of pull myself together and learn from just like years of having to do this in middle school, high school, college, when I've had those losses or I didn't get invited to camp or things like that, it's like the biggest thing that I've learned is just like how to keep things into perspective and then just kind of regroup of like, okay, you know, is this still something that I really want to pursue? Like there were so many times when people told me that I was never going to make it onto the, you know, under 23 United States team. They were like, you know, you didn't go to Cal, you haven't won NCAAs, like why even try? And I knew it was something that I really wanted to do. And that I was like, I'm going to the Olympics and I'm going to get a gold medal around my neck in some way. And I just persevered and I knew that it was what I wanted to do. And I ended up getting invited to that camp like 7 days before it started because I just kept emailing that coach and I said, look, I did well enough. Please invite me. And she said, okay, fine. And then I ended up making that boat and then we ended up winning the world championship. So it's like, there's going to be losses and there's going to be setbacks. And it's just part of the learning process. And like, if you're really passionate about it, it's like, you're not going to let that stop you and you're just going to keep going. And there's people that I've relied on and like talked to about, you know, in those really dark moments where I'm like, ugh, like, why am I still doing this? It's like the people who have known me are there and they'll be like, this is what you're passionate about and this is what you're meant to do. Like, stick with it, like keep that motivation going. So, you know, I think especially middle and high school, you're going to have those moments. If it's something you want to do, like stay with it. It'll just make you so much stronger to be able to pull through that.
Yeah, totally agree. Catherine, let's wrap it up with you. Some words for the viewers.
Yeah, I mean, everyone just gave such great advice. And so I think, you know, and such different types of advice that all really just kind of fits together nicely. I think the big takeaway is just surround yourself with the people that are going to make you feel good and have the positive attitude and believe in you. So if it's your parents, if it's your coaches, if it's a teacher, if it's, you know, whoever it is in your life right now, that, you know, adult type of person, I think is really critically important. Surround yourself with people that tell you that you can do it, especially when you're young trying out, because this is the time, I think Hemi said, that you can try lots of things. I played basketball and ran track, but I also was doing drama and journalism and Future Business Leaders of America. And like, this was a time where you didn't have to do all that stuff for your resume to get into college. I was doing it because I wanted to try all these different things. And I loved learning and applying all the different parts of my personality. And some of the things stuck and some of the things I'd do for a semester or a year and then I'd move on. But I think I can look back and say everything I did in middle school and high school and college attributes to the success I have today. And I learned that I can take risks. And I learned that there are people I can, you know, rely on that are going to support me, that I can call when I'm having a bad day. And I think that's really important when you're growing up, is figuring out who those people are and to not give up. And we still fail. All of us on this call still make mistakes on a daily basis. And I think it's how you work through those mistakes and how you work through those challenges. And if you can learn that now, like your life is going to get so much more successful and so exciting. But I think I'm just really excited that, you know, we're here and hopefully you can look at us and see the success that we've had and know that you too can achieve it, because you can, and that you guys can achieve more than we've achieved. And, you know, we're starting the foundation for you, and you're the next group of women that are going to kind of take over in sports. And so know that you can achieve anything that you put your hearts and your mind and the hard work. And it takes a lot of hard work, and don't give up.
Yeah, absolutely. Well said. Success looks different for everyone. You know, don't be afraid to fail on the way. And, you know, you guys are all doing the right thing right now by tuning in, by listening to people's stories. You have support in us. Maybe we'll all cross paths down the road. You know, we're rooting for all of you, and don't forget to have fun along the way. And that's exactly what you do when you're playing youth baseball and softball, is have fun and build teammates and build friends and build your support system. So you guys are well on your path to success. And we thank you so much for watching today. Hope that you've enjoyed it. And thank you so much to all of our panelists. I really enjoyed hearing all of your stories and a little bit more about you. And I see you guys all the time, and I still don't know everything about you, and I want to keep listening. And so thank you guys so much. And also thank you to Chevron for presenting this. We're really happy that you could be a part of this. And this has been the Major League Mindset panel, and hope you've enjoyed.